Welcome to the Rustic Garden. Today I'm going to show you how to make your own tomato cages, or vegetable cages really, because I'm going to use these to trellis green beans, zucchini, squash, cucumbers. So you want something sturdy for your containers that you can grow your vegetables vertically. That'll save you space. It's a lot easier to take care of diseases that way too. This is made out of barrier wire or welded fencing. And you go pick up a 4-foot roll. You can go taller if you want. This is a 4-foot by 50-foot roll. This will make about 15 or 16 cages for 5-gallon containers. Of course, the more material you use, the less trellises you're going to be able to make, or the less cages you're going to be able to make. But I know that each piece here takes about 35 inches of material. So this is what I'm going to show you how to make. It's a 14-gauge trellis for your containers. Inexpensive, takes a little bit of work but not much time, and you're going to have a solid base for all your container vegetables to grow up. So again, let me just go over the material. 4 feet by 50 feet, that's plenty. You can get something smaller if you don't need a lot. But what you're looking for is the gauge. You want a 14-gauge wire. That's the thickness of the wire right here, and that's just nice and sturdy. A little bit less is fine. I wouldn't go too much higher because it's hard to cut. You're also going to need tools to cut the wire. Now this is what I use for my chicken wire. Chicken wire is not that thick, so when you go and buy clippers, you want to make sure it says 18 gauge or a gauge that is higher than the material you're cutting. So this is 14, so 18 is taller. So this easily went through and cut my materials. Now there's 2 ways to do it. I like to sink them into the bottom of the bucket for vegetables that are going to be taller and heavier. That just creates more stability, and I'll show you how to also create them so that you can just press them in on the top. Over here I have your standard tomato cage, and this is probably $3 or $4, and it only gets really 3 feet tall. You can buy taller ones, but you're getting into a $4 or $5 price range. These are nice. They slip right over your plants when they're small and they can grow up, but they're not that stable when you have heavier plants. So let me get to the construction. I'll explain everything to you, show you how you can put them together, and then also take them apart so that it's a nice, easy way to store them at the end of the season. So you're just going to measure the base of the container. Sometimes the base is smaller than the top, and you want the cage to be able to be dropped down into the bottom if you're going to do it that way. And you can see it's about 34 inches. So you want to add 1 inch to it, because when you're cutting it, you're going to lose space. So you're getting a piece of fencing that is about 35 inches long, and you would just measure it and cut it out that way. I'm not going to show you that, save you some time. When you cut it, because of the extra inch, you're cutting right, let's see if you can see this. You're cutting it so that you're going to have some wire hanging here, and this is how you're going to attach it to the other side. So basically, when you measure it off the main roll, you find the 35th inch, which would be right about there. You would cut right here, and it's going to leave you that prong so that you can build your cage. So you have your 35-inch piece. Start with the bottom. You're just going to fold it over like that, and that attaches it to itself, and it's going to be nice and sturdy. And then you just fold it over just like this, nothing fancy, and tuck these under. Now they're sharp, so be careful, but you would just go all the way through and tuck the wires under, and you end up with a nice solid cage for your tomato to grow up. It looks like this when you're done. There's the 5-gallon bucket, and it's nice and solid. Now you'll notice my hand, and most people's hands are going to be bigger than this. Let me show you how we cut this out and get it set up for harvesting. Now I like to sink the cage to the bottom of the container when I'm growing something that's going to be really heavy or tall. I'm also going to talk about how we can extend this beyond 4 feet too, because you're going to have tomatoes that are going to grow 5-6 feet, cucumbers, beans that will grow past the 4-foot space. But this is nice and solid, great stable base for plants to climb up in your containers. You could fill the container up halfway if you want. Don't put anything in there if you want it to go all the way to the bottom, and you just sink it right down just like that. And you would fill the dirt from the top. You're going to have to just kind of use some buckets and dump it in. But this is going to be a nice, solid, stable trellising cage for your tomatoes and your vegetables. Now the biggest thing is you know that your hand can't reach into here. So what you would do is just cut out a space down at the bottom, down at the top, and down on the opposite side. And it's real easy. Hand size, find the wire, cut the and completely remove it. Now you have a space for your hand to reach in and pick your vegetables. Now these are really sharp, so I would recommend getting some duct tape and just covering these tips, because you don't want to be scratching your fruit, your vegetables, or your arm when you're pulling it out. Now you may not want to sink the cage down to the bottom. And what we're going to do is, let me use the top just to show you. What we're going to do is cut out all of this along here, so that we just have prongs, and that will be something that we stick right into the soil. Let me set this up and I'll show you how I do that. Now this is going to be a cage for my Bradley tomato, and you can do this several ways. You can cut everything across like this, and you will have every single prong going into the ground, and you may want to do that if you're growing a vegetable plant that's going to be heavy. You want the extra support. For tomatoes, you can just cut out these T's, just like this. And you can see, whoa, uh-oh, I hope it's okay. You can see that you're going to have a space, and then you're going to have a prong, and maybe that's enough depth. I don't think that it is, so then I go to the next level, cut out another T section. And you just don't want your cage to give out when you have something heavy growing up. Let me finish doing all this, and then I'll show you how I set it up on my now damaged Bradley tomato. So here's what it looks like when you're done. This is 2 spaces cut out right here, and that goes all the way around. Or if you wanted to just do 1 space, if you're growing something that's going to be heavier, this is just 1 space cut out, and you can see that you end up with extra prongs. But this is all you need to do. And again, these are sharp, just be careful. Now, let's see if I can do this. Obviously, your cages should go on sooner before your tomato gets large like this, but you would just drop it over it, and make sure you have a hole on the side that you cut out for your hand, and you gently pull the tomato into the cylinder. The bottom leaves are going to get cut off on purpose. As I do that, is to create kind of a barrier between the soil and the plant leaves. This way disease doesn't splash up onto the plant. But that's the general idea, and then you can work the leaves through the holes, and this will be nice and solid for this semi-determinate variety tomato to grow up. It's going to grow up to at least 4 feet. So I want the bigger, stronger cage for tomatoes that are to get taller. Over here, just real quick, you can see a silvery fir. That only gets to about 3 feet tall, so I'm going to just use a stake for that. But for your bigger plants, you definitely want a solid cage like this. Now you can extend these cages. You can also make them stronger. If you're growing something really heavy, you could put a stake right here and weave it through the metal and press it into the container soil, and that will give it some strength. But if you need to make it taller, if you're growing beans, taller tomatoes, any kind of vines, just take some bamboo poles or sticks and weave them into the top. I've extended this by about 2 feet just by taking the sticks, start on the inside, and then go through 3 pieces of metal. 1 inside, bring the stick to the outside, and then bring the stick to the inside. 1, 2, and 3, and that will really secure the stick there for more vegetable growth. To store it, you would just come around, undo the pieces of metal that you bent to secure them together, stack them on top of each other, press them together, and you can store them in a much smaller space than having these cages all around. Hope you enjoyed the video. It gives you some idea of how you can build these cages, save some money, support your container plants and your in-ground plants. Please check out my garden and seeds shop at www.therustedgarden.com. Thank you.